Hello, my name is Diana White, and I am going to present to you today our Credentialing Assistance Program, which is available to soldiers across all the branches of the Army. The Credentialing Assistance Program presentation was originally created by the Army National Guard Education Services Branch at National Guard Bureau, and that is who is shown on this first slide. Going to the next slide. This is our agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about each of the things on this agenda, but we're going to focus particularly on some of the deeper knowledge that is needed for things like eligibility, the benefits of the program, how to use it, and using it with other benefits that you might have available to you. All right, so I'm not going to read the policy to you. Just understand that this program was directed starting in 6 June 2018, and it was created to help soldiers get credentials other than those specifically available through academic means. For example, instead of a college degree, looking at licenses and certifications that help with making a person more viable professionally. This program has about $4,000 available towards earning a credential, certification, recertification, or license. For a list of those eligible credentials, you would go to the Army Cool website. There's going to be a link for that later. Understand that there's only a single pot of money for using federal tuition assistance and credentialing assistance. So if you're a soldier who's already using federal tuition assistance, in any given fiscal year, the maximum amount that you can spend towards either federal tuition assistance or credentialing assistance, or both at the same time, is $4,000. Credential has to be listed on this website. If it is not there, it will not be eligible. Credentials don't have to be related, however, to your current MOS or military occupational specialty. It's helpful if you're going to have a civilian job that's related to your current MOS to search for credentials by MOS in the Army Cool website, but you don't have to be seeking a credential related to a current military job you already have. You can look for credentials that are related to an academic credential you already possess, related to a career you'd like to have later in your life. The only thing that credentials cannot be associated with is a doctoral degree that you already have. So what does credentialing assistance pay for? It pays for training, materials, books, and fees. But everything is paid before the courses start or the date you select, right? And we're going to be talking about a help desk case, but all your notifications on credentialing assistance once you have applied will happen through Go Army Ed's portal or the Ignited portal when that launches later this year. And it'll be your responsibility to keep checking and make sure that your email doesn't send everything to spam and doesn't block emails that come out of the Go Army Ed portal or the Ignited portal when that gets going. And you want to make sure that you do not pay out of pocket for anything, because if you put down a deposit on the program, or you buy a book, or you buy a tool, and it would have been covered by CA, once you've purchased it, there is going to be no reimbursement for you. So please wait to pay out of pocket costs until after credentialing assistance funds have been paid, and the payments will go directly to the vendor of either your training or your book or the exam you're going to take or all of the above, right? And the books and materials that we buy for you will be mailed directly to you. So how do you know if you're eligible? Well, you have to have completed advanced initial training, meaning you've gone to basic and your MOS school, warrant officer basic, or basic officers leaders course in order to be able to request your first credential. You cannot have any adverse action flags. So that means that you can't be flagged in the Army system to keep you from getting things that positive happen to you, like promotions or transfers. So if you've got a height and weight problem, PT problem, or some other kind of issue that is stopping you from positive actions happening in the Army, you would also be ineligible to use the Credentialing Assistance Program or the Federal Tuition Assistance Program for that matter until after those flags have been resolved and removed, right? You also cannot have some kinds of holds on your GoArmyEd account. So if you already have a GoArmyEd account and you are on hold for anything other than a tier hold, a GPA hold, a civilian education level hold, or a student agreement hold, then you would not be eligible to use CA. If you're not sure about these holds, or you're not sure if your GoArmyEd account is active, please make sure you connect with your Army Education Services specialist. Each of you who is out there will have a different one of those. If you're active duty, your Army Education Center on your active duty installation is most likely the place you're going to go to for credentialing assistance help. If you are in the National Guard, you're going to be speaking with your state's National Guard Education Office, particularly your Education Services specialist. Some states for National Guard don't have an education services specialist located in the state with you, but have one that's located in another state. For example, I cover the state of California, and I am in California, but I also help Colorado Army National Guard soldiers. So if you are not sure who to contact, I'm going to talk a little bit later in this briefing about where you can go to find the closest education services specialist who can help you with credentialing. All right. And of course, your final eligibility thing is that you must be able to complete the course and get your credential before you separate from the military, either through retirement because your contract is up, meaning and your ETS date, because you're getting med boarded out, whatever it is that's happening, you have to be able to finish the class or the training before you depart service. So let's say you're getting out in August 20th of 2020, and you've got a credential you'd like to get out, but the credential training doesn't end until August 21st. You would not be able to use CA for that course. However, if you extended so that your date went past August 20th, and then you'd be able to request CA and get it approved and use that funding before you leave. So the basic rule of thumb on using credentialing assistance and the Montgomery GI Bill, we're talking Chapter 1606 GI Bill, or pretty much any GI Bill in this particular situation, is that you cannot get federal funding, pay for the same training that you're also getting credentialing assistance to pay for. It's considered double dipping. So there's a strict prohibition against using any federal benefits in addition to credentialing assistance. That said, if you are eligible for the Chapter 1606 or other GI Bill, and you would like to use credentialing assistance to get your training to prepare for an exam, and then you would like to use the GI Bill's exam reimbursement program separately, you'd be able to do that. And you can use the Chapter 1606 to request reimbursement. And you would go to va.gov and you'd fill out the online application or use the VA form VA 22-0803. If you're not sure about duplication of benefits, once again, we'd like to remind you, it is best to connect with an education counselor because they are going to have the latest information and be able to give you the right information for you to be able to process your request. So military service obligations. Some of you will say, well, if I get this wonderful money and I can take these credentials, what do I have to give the Army? If you are an officer at the Warrant Officer CW2, Second Lieutenant and above, whether you are active duty, reserves, or National Guard, you are subject to a service obligation. For reserve officers, it is a 4-year service obligation after the last day of the training. For active duty officers, it is a 2-year service obligation after the last day of the course. So there are some of you who are reserve or Army National Guard soldiers who are what we call active guard reserve, which means you're on full-time active duty orders. Your status while you are training on the last day of your course, if your AGR will determine your MSO. There is an exception. If you are using credentialing assistance for testing or recertification of a credential, you will not incur a service obligation if you use this program during your last year of service, but there is a cap of $2,000 on that amount that you can use. So remember, in your last year of service before transitioning out, if you'd like to take an exam to get a credential that you can carry with you, you can use up to $2,000 to do that with CA. So what about recoupment? So as you know, the armed services don't give out money willy-nilly without you, the soldier, having a responsibility. So you would be responsible for completing your training successfully. So if you fail a course, withdraw from a course of instruction, or fail to sit for an exam that we've paid for, or fail the exam, the Army is going to come back after you for the money as a debt. Or if you fail to complete your service obligation. Now, this is only if your failure is subject to something that you could have controlled. Things beyond your control, like emergency medical situations, a death in the family, you get activated and sent away to a place that doesn't have internet access, we can set you up to do a waiver of recoupment request. We call that a WM, or a military withdrawal. And once that is approved, you would not be recouped. But keep in mind, if you sign up for something and you start to do it, and for whatever personal reasons, it's too much for you, you lost interest, or you weren't as successful as you thought you would be, you will have to pay the Army back. So what kinds of credentials could you seek? So there's different kinds of credentials that are out there. And academic diploma is also a kind of credential. But what we're talking about here are credentials that are related to specific careers and career fields. Sometimes it's licenses, sometimes it's certifications, and sometimes it's apprenticeship programs. So I want to look at the different kinds of credentials that you could seek, and there's over 1,500 of them available. Now, under the COOL website, we have job families or occupation-related families. And these are lined up with the ONET job families, which is Department of Labor. And you can see that there are 22 families. And each of the credentials that are in the Army COOL website will fall into one of these families. It's helpful to know these because it helps you to make your search a little easier. For example, I'm in the education field, so I'm probably interested in the education, training, and library job family. Unless, of course, I want to change careers and I'd really like to become somebody who's in the arts. And in that case, I would then look for credentials related to arts, design, entertainment, sports, and media. But we can talk a little bit more about how to use the COOL website a little bit later in this presentation. So the CA process. This slide says it's easy as 1, 2, 3. Step 1, contact your state education services officer or education services specialist. Or if you're active duty, your active duty education center. Step 2 is submitting a CA request in GoArmyEd, and step 3 is to monitor request and upload completion. So though these are 3 simple steps, there are some internal steps that you'd want to do. For example, as part of step 1, after you contact your state education services officer, you get more detailed information about the credentialing assistance process. You're also going to want to visit the Army COOL website. You're going to want to research the credentials that you might choose to seek. You're also going to want to research any requirements that those credentials have. Because if there's a requirement to do a credential, for example, project management professional, requires you to have a certain amount of work experience as well as formal education and formal training in order to be eligible to get the credential. So you're going to need to come up with the proof or the evidence that you have meet those requirements before you can submit your CA request, because you're going to attach that documentation to your CA request. So it's really, really helpful to first do some research. Then when you're ready to submit your CA request, I always recommend working with an education services specialist, Army education counselor, to go over your request while you're writing it up to make sure that everything in there is pretty kosher before you submit it. That'll save you a lot of time and going back and forth in the GoArmyEd system. And then, of course, we did talk earlier about it being your responsibility to monitor your request, and also when you're finally done your training, we've paid for it, to upload proof of completion so that we can close it out and move on to the next credential if you'd like to do another one. So step one, just talked about this. Contact your state's education services specialist to receive counseling, and or your Army Education Center closest to you for Army Reserves and for active duty Army soldiers. Find the credential on the Army Cool website. And then we talk about select a training provider or a vendor. So on the Army Cool website, and I'm going to go there shortly and let you look at it, there is a credentialing vendor approved vendor list. What that means is that there's a bunch of credentials for which we've already vetted the provider. So all that means is that they're willing to accept the Army payments in the way the Army is going to make them through either GoArmyEd or Ignited. It does not mean that the training provider isn't a good training provider. It just means that there is a little bit more streamlined to the process because that vendor already has an agreement with the Army to accept credentialing assistance funds. But just because the training provider you're looking for is not on the approved vendors list doesn't mean you should not use that vendor when you apply for CA, because this is a brand new program that just went nationwide on 1 January. There are tons of vendors out there who offer training in all of these different credentials. Sometimes there's hundreds of training providers for a single credential, and you're able to request whichever one you like. Just keep in mind that can make the process for approving your request take a little longer because the staff at headquarters, Access Army University, are going to have to coordinate with that vendor and find out if that vendor is willing to agree to the Army's payment methods and some other requirements. So vendors, there's a link also on the Credentialing Assistance website for you to look at information as well, but I'm going to get to those links in just a little bit. So again, you're going to have to do some research, soldier. After you find the credential on the Army Cool website, you're also going to have to use your Google Foo to find providers to provide the training that you would like to pursue. All right, so here's a screenshot of the Army Cool website. I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit on this so that you can see a little bit more detail. So when you go to the website, you can see that there's options for how to search for credentials. Listed MOS, Warrant Officer MOS, Officer, and ASIs. You can also see that there's a black bar down here with some other options. I find that clicking the Credentialing Assistance link is very helpful because it's going to pop up a video that helps you to navigate the website. The video is not too long, very simple, and it really makes this credentialing website work very well. Remember, we talked about the DOL job families earlier. You can see there's a link to search by job family. There's also a full credential search. So if you're one of those folks who already knows the credential you seek, you're already working in that career field, you're looking for a recertification, or you're looking to jump to the next higher level of certification, you're going to go to the full credential search. Right. Here's another screen that we can look at. I'm going to make it larger again. You can see that this is the Army Credentialing Assistance site. You'll see in here there's related links. And you'll see the CA process guide for how to apply. This is very helpful because it'll give you screenshots on how to set up your account in GoArmyEd if you don't already have one, and also how to create a help desk case, download the forms that you'll need in order to apply for CA, and there's a link to information on DoD job families or DOL job families. And then there's that approved vendor list. This is very, very helpful. And remember when I said earlier that if you have a training provider that isn't already on the approved vendor list, there is a vendor brochure that your vendor could click and download, or you could download and give to your vendor to help. So that's one way of helping a vendor who's not already vetted with our Access Army University. I'm gonna make this smaller again. I hope that I'm not boring you too much. So step 2, once you have found your training provider, gotten all the information from them that you need, and you're ready to make this request, you're gonna go to GoArmyEd and you're gonna click Request TA Access, complete VIA. And VIA is a special program. It's gonna ask you some questions about you. It's gonna ask you some questions about your goals. And then once you've completed the VIA process and click submit, you're going to have to wait a little while because we need to review and approve access. Once you get an approval, that's when you're going to go back into GoArmyEd, open a help desk case, and select credentialing assistance or credential request. Once you do that, some documents are going to populate, and you're going to download those documents. Once you've downloaded those documents, you can save them. You can exit out of the help desk case. If you're not quite ready to submit a help desk case, you're going to take your credentialing plan and your statement of understanding. Those are 2 Excel files. You're going to open each of them. And the statement of understanding, you're going to sign digitally with your Common Access card. If you don't have a Common Access card reader at home plugged into your home computer, you may have to go to your unit in order to sign in on a CAC-enabled machine, sign that file, save it, and then send it to yourself or upload it directly to GoArmyEd from there. When you're filling out a credentialing assistance request, please keep in mind that we do need a lead time because we're going to pay for your program in advance before you even start. Sometimes even a little ways before you even start so that your books and supplies can arrive to you before you start your training. So the minimum start date for your credentialing assistance request is 30 business days from the date of submission. That means you have to account for holidays, weekends, any other issues that are going to keep the business offices closed. So that means a minimum of 45 calendar days for 6 weeks. I personally always recommend that you actually select 7 weeks because when you submit that case, it's going to go to an Army education counselor, and that counselor is going to review that case. He's going to reach out and try to contact you. He's going to take a look at everything that you put in there. And if there's something missing, like a document showing you've got the work experience needed for the credential you sought, or maybe you're doing a credential that requires you have a current CPR certification. If you forgot to upload that, you're going to have to upload that, and that means giving us time to work back and forth with you. Sometimes it also means that there's something on the form that needs to be corrected. And one of the reasons that we like to correct these things up front, pardon my tongue-tiedness today, is that we want to make sure that this process goes as smoothly as possible for you. So we're going to make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted and all of the information is absolutely as accurate as possible. That way, when we escalate the case up to headquarters access for their review, it will go a lot better. Now, the clock for processing your request doesn't start until your counselor escalates the case, which means the start date has to be 30 business days from the date we escalate it, not from the date you upload your request into GoArmyEd. Just want to keep that in mind, giving yourself an extra week. And if your vendor is not on the approved vendors list, giving yourself an extra 2 weeks is very helpful. Your start end date that you put into your request, make sure you give yourself some time. If the training you're looking for says it's going to take 10 weeks to do, and you only leave yourself 10 weeks. If something happens that delays you, for example, another COVID-19 lockdown that prevents you from going to class, or your course is delayed, the training provider has an issue, there's internet connectivity issues, you want to give yourself a little bit of a cushion. So I recommend that you give yourself an extra 15 to 20 days after the recommended amount of time for doing your training. And now we're on the next slide, and this is a screen of what GoArmyEd looks like, and you are going in to create that help desk case. You'll see that after your account is active, you'll be able to click on My Education Record, and that's what you're going to click on first. Now we're going to go down to the next page. Once you hit that My Education Record, you'll see these tabs here. So you'll see your name's going to be in here, some of your information. SSN's not actually there anymore, it's all X'd out. And you're going to click on this Help Desk Case tab, right? Sometimes it's fun to look at these other tabs as well, particularly CTS notes, because things that we send you or that your Army counselor talks about with you are going to be mentioned in the CTS notes. And you can use that history to help you when asking for extra help or having additional questions. And we're going to look on this Help Desk Case tab, and you'll see there's a drop-down menu here for click Display Open Cases, and there's this button down here for Create Help Desk Case. This is where you're going to go. And when you open that Create Help Desk Case, you're going to have another little pop-up window, and you're going to have to go down to the tiny link at the bottom of that window that says Continue. These didn't answer my question. And once you do that, this screen is going to pop up. And when you get here, you'll see that there's your name and information is here. And you're going to have to choose that you are, whether you're out of the country or in country, so OCONUS. Always good to put an alternative phone number here in addition to your phone number that you registered for GoArmyEd with. And you're going to choose Credentialing Request. Once you choose that, there's that pop-up that I said that has those files to download. You'll click each one of those, download them, and save them to your computer. Then when you're ready to upload them, you're going to put the subject of your credentialing request. I like to put in the name of the credential you're seeking plus the start date you'd like to have, because that helps us look at a glance at the subject line of your credential request, and it makes it a little bit more efficient for us to process when it gets to higher headquarters. Then you'll see that there's a Browse button. You're only going to be able to attach one document at this time. So after you click Browse and you upload your statement of understanding, put a note in here. Talk about what you're seeking, the documents that you're going to upload, which document you're uploading at this particular time. Once you've done that, you'll be able to click and add notes and add another document. And you can keep doing that until you have all your documents uploaded. All right. So again, you're selecting your desired credential. Now, when you fill out your plan, this is the document where it's actually the Excel workbook. We're going to move, this is the actual application itself. You're going to, on the first tab, you're going to select your desired credential. Be very careful when you're selecting your desired credential, because there are some credentials that have the same name, but because they are accredited by a different credentialing agency, for example, personal fitness trainer, there's about 5 or 6 different options. You want to make sure that you're selecting the one that you're seeking. When you've done that, if your credential is not is currently listed on Army Pool but is not in the drop-down list, click that checkbox and it'll open a window where you can type in the credential you're seeking. Now let's talk about the credentialing plan part 2 or tab 2. This is going to be your soldier information. The name of your credential is going to automatically populate. The vendor information, that's going to be the person that you're paying to get your training, start and end dates, and also your installation. If you can't find your installation, and a lot of National Guard soldiers, you will not have an installation because you don't have an active duty installation, you're going to click on the checkbox because your installation is not listed, and you're going to type in your state National Guard Education Office, and your Ed Center is going to be the same thing. Notice the yellow fields. You must fill out all these yellow fields. Right now there's a blue border. When you've completely filled out everything correctly, then that border is going to turn green, and it means that you've typed something in all the required fields, and the data you've typed in there is the correct type of data. For example, if you typed text into a phone number, you're going to get an error, and the screen is going to flash red. And we don't want that to happen. But once you fill out all this, keep in mind, if you don't have a work phone, you can put in your cell phone twice, or you can put in your unit phone number for those of you who are in the reserves or the National Guard as an alternate method of reaching you. We know you'll only be there one weekend a month, but it can be helpful. All right. Then on part 3, this is a detailed list of all the costs and the materials that you're going to add. So an example would be you're taking a course in personal fitness training, and a book is required. So you're going to put in the information about the training you're going to take. I'm going to fill out that entire field. But you're also going to put in the information about the book you need, and it's going to have the ISBN number and the price and the place you found it, all that. But the very first thing you're going to do up here is you're going to choose whether or not you're looking for training, preparation, or for obtaining a credential. The only times that you want to choose obtaining a credential is when the training provider is giving you a free voucher for the exam. If the exam voucher has a cost to it and it's bundled into the training price, you do not want to take that bundle. You actually want to pay for the preparation separately, because if you choose to get obtaining and you have a credentialing opportunity where the training bundles everything together, but the voucher isn't free, if you fail the exam after completing the training successfully, the Army's going to recoup the cost. However, if you take the training first and complete that successfully, and then you put in a separate request for the exam, and credentialing assistance pays for the exam separately, and you fail the exam the first time you take it, we're only going to recoup the exam cost. So credentialing vendors that are vetted by the Army have agreed to separate out the exam cost from the training bundle cost in order to prevent you from getting recouped for an entire amount. So that's one of the reasons why we ask that you get the vendor list first. If you've got a credential that's pretty popular, that already has a vendor that's vetted, you can streamline the process a little bit. But if you're not an online learner, and a lot of the programs where the vendors are already vetted are online, or the program of study you have is like parachuting or pilot program where you really need face-to-face training, we're definitely going to have to get your vendor vetted. So again, remember, if you choose preparation, most credential requests are going to choose preparation. And if you're doing preparation and an exam, you can request the CA for both things separately through 2 separate help desk cases. Just keep in mind that the request for your exam must not have an exam start date of sooner than 10 days after the training end date of your preparation. That way, we don't pay for the exam before you successfully complete the training. And it gives us time to get your training completion uploaded in the system and that case closed out before they pay for the exam for you. Oh, this is a lot, isn't it? All right, your statement of understanding. Remember how I said it had to be digitally signed? All you're going to do is open it. You're going to right-click in the box for signature. You're going to choose your CAC certificate. You're going to click sign. It's going to ask you to save the file. You're going to save it. And once it's saved, you'll be able to upload it and or email it. Then step 3, once your case is submitted, you're going to monitor the case. I recommend you check in to GoArmyEd weekly. In order to find your case, you're going to take the same steps that we looked at earlier. You're going to log into GoArmyEd. You're going to click My Education Record. You're going to click the Help Desk Case tab, and then you're going to make sure that that drop-down menu says Open Cases. If it says Open Cases, your case will be listed. There's a plus mark next to it. You can click the plus mark, and you can look at your case notes and see if anybody's added anything. Now, GoArmyEd will send you an automated email message when a case note is added. So that's why it's really important when you register for your GoArmyEd account, or if you've already registered, to make sure that the email account your emails are going to is an email you check regularly. If your email is going to your .mil account and you only check that once every 6 months, you're going to miss important information about your credentialing request. And you don't want to do that, because sometimes they're going to contact you 2 or 3 days before your training due date starts and talk to you about making payment. And you want to make sure that you don't miss those communicates. So again, it is the soldier's requirement to monitor the case. Now, your ArmyEd counselors can look at your cases, and we do keep a tracker, but we will not get those automated messages. So we won't necessarily know you've gotten an update unless, once we're doing our weekly check-ins, we look at your case specifically. So once you've been approved and your training has been paid for, you're going to do the work to complete their credential. And then you're going to upload the certificate of completion, the licensure or certification to the help desk case within 10 business days of completion. And that is pretty much the program in a nutshell. So the Army Cool website is www.cool.osd.mil/Army. The vendor vetting website. So you've got a vendor and they're interested and they want to put in their application. They can go to this website, the GoArmyEd related links website. They do not have a GoArmyEd account to do so. And when they click that, they can scroll to the very bottom of the page and they will see a vendor application they can download, a vendor frequently asked questions list, and a few other documents that are helpful. Credentialing assistance email. This is where the vendor will send their application. And this is also where you, if you have a specific question about your credentialing case, would send an email. But we recommend that you don't send emails here until you've also already spoken with your Army counselor, because a lot of times an Army counselor can answer your question. And we want to save this website or this email address up at headquarters Access Army University for those those issues that are not as easily or readily answered. That way it streamlines. You have people answering basic credentialing assistance questions from that email address. Then it takes that time away from processing your CA request. If you're not sure who your National Guard State Education Services officer is or your education counselor, you can use nationalguard.com, select your state, find your state, and find the contact information. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you are an active duty soldier or reserve soldier and you're not sure how to contact, you can also go to goarmyed.com, scroll down to the very bottom of the page in the black area. There is yellow text that says GoArmyEd, and underneath of that is a link for education centers, and all of the education centers and points of contact are listed there. Thank you very much for your time and your attention. Remember, it's cool.army.mil. And if you have any questions, please post them to this video, and I will respond to requests as soon as I get the notice that you've asked one. Again, this is Diana White. Have a fantastic credentialing assistance day.